Hello, this is Zach, and welcome to AutoCAD Basic Training. This is Lesson 1, Part 2, where I'm going to show you how to draw some basic entities like lines, arcs, and circles. So the first thing I wanted to show you is the ribbon up here. The ribbon is very similar to other applications like Microsoft Word or Excel. And it's organized into a series of tabs. The ones over here that have WW in the front are the custom ones that we use for Walters and Wolf commands. But the basic AutoCAD tools are mostly in the Home tab. So we're going to start there. We're going to start by drawing a line. So to draw a line, let's first go to model space. Most of the time when you're drawing things, you'll want to be in model space because that's going to be at the scale of the object you're actually drawing. So I'm going to start the line command by clicking on the Home tab ribbon and then the line button. And in AutoCAD there's this command line here, and it always gives you instructions on what the program is wanting next. So it's asking specify the first point. So I'm just going to take my mouse and click somewhere to start my line from that point. You can see that it placed a little marker there, and now I'm kind of drawing a line to another point. It's actually saying in the command line, specify the next point. So I can click a couple times, and draw a bunch of different lines. In AutoCAD, you never want to click and drag. Although it will let you do that a lot of times, it's a pretty bad habit to get into because very rarely does AutoCAD require it, and you'll see in other versions of AutoCAD it actually does different behavior when you drag. So in general, just don't drag at all. Always just click, 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 on and on and on. So I've drawn this kind of series of lines. When I'm done, I can just hit enter to stop it, or I can hit escape to cancel out of the line command. Either one will stop the line command. Another way to draw lines, if I start the line command again, maybe I want to draw just horizontal or vertical lines. There's what we call in AutoCAD Ortho. So I've started the line command and I clicked in a point, and now my second point, right now I'm free to draw it in any direction I want. But maybe I just want to go horizontal or vertical. So down on the bottom in the toolbar, there's an Ortho Mode, which it shows, you probably can't see it in the video, but it says that I can activate it by hitting F8 as well. Or I can just click on this. So if I click on this, it activates Ortho, and now I'm forced to draw only horizontally or vertically. A lot of times you'll be turning this feature off and on because Ortho is really nice for a lot of things, especially in construction. But when you're annotating, sometimes it becomes bothersome, so you'll want to turn it off when you're annotating things. But I have it on right now, and now when I click, doesn't matter where I click, I can be way down here, but you can see that the line it's going to draw is going to go straight across, like that. So that's Ortho. Allows you to draw orthographically, that's why it's called Ortho. And again, to quit, I can just hit enter, or I can hit escape. The line command is a command that just kind of keeps running. Not all commands are like that, but line command certainly is. Now, I talked a little bit about the command line, and the command line gives you all kinds of information on what you can do in AutoCAD, so you should be looking down there quite frequently, especially as a beginner. Once you've memorized a lot of the commands, you might not be looking down here all the time, but whenever you get lost, look down at the command line. It should tell you exactly what's going on, whether you have a command running that you didn't know you had running, or it'll tell you what you should be clicking on for the next part of the command. I talked about canceling a command, and you do that with just the escape key. So right now, the command line is telling me specify next point, and it keeps asking me that. No matter how many points I click, it keeps asking. So when I want to end it, I can just hit escape, and you'll see it says cancel on the command line, and then it puts command here, which means it's waiting for the next command that I want to run. I can also repeat a command. So when you have no command running, if you just hit the enter key it will restart the last command that you ran, which in my case is line, and it asked for the first point, and I could start drawing another line. So very quickly, I can just keep hitting enter to start and stop a new line. Maybe I only want to draw a couple segments. So what I'm doing here is I'm hitting enter to start the line command again to repeat the last command. Click, click for a second point. Hitting enter to tell it I'm done with that command puts me back on the command line, and if I hit enter a second time, it repeats it again. So I can pretty quickly click, click, enter, enter, click, click, enter, enter, click, click, enter, enter, and draw a bunch of things. That's repeating a command. You can also type the command in the command line. Now this takes practice. Most people who use AutoCAD a lot are heavily typing in here. They don't use the ribbon much, and that's why on our WW drafting tab we don't have things like the line command, because the line command is usually typed by most AutoCAD users. So to type it, you could type out the full command name, line, and AutoCAD will even suggest a couple possibilities. Or you could just type out L. L also is the line command, which is what most people use. And that starts the line command as well. There's also Osnaps. So say I wanted to draw a line from this point right here, and I wanted to make sure I was exactly at this point. A lot of beginners will try and eyeball this. They'll just they'll zoom in really far. They'll put their mouse right there, and then they'll click. But ultimately, that's not very accurate at all. So I'm going to draw my line there, and you'll just see how inaccurate I was. I was actually off by a lot. And depending on your drawing scales and how far you actually zoomed in, this may be okay enough, but most of the time it's just easier to draw accurately than trying to line up your mouse clicks perfectly. So to get that to happen, you want to use what's called Osnaps. So I'm going to start the line command. You always want to start with a real command first. And it's asking for the first point. And I want my first point to be right at the end of these lines. So to activate my Osnap, I hold down the Shift key, and then I right-click with my mouse. That brings up this other menu. Let me put it up here so you can see it. And this has a bunch of different ways to precisely pick on parts of your geometry. And for right now, I'm going to introduce you to a couple, and you'll learn more as you get better with AutoCAD. But probably the most used one, for me at least, is Endpoint. So if I click on Endpoint, it activates my mouse so that when I mouse over a line, it shows a little green box at the endpoint. Depending on which line I'm on, I can get different endpoints. Depending on which end I'm near to, I can get different endpoints. See, I can get one there. See how I don't have to zoom in very far, and I know I'm right at the endpoint. Now, once you see that green box, a lot of beginners are tempted to, even experts, are tempted to just take their mouse and go all the way over to that green, so you'll see that my cursor kind of snaps right to the middle. And you can do that if you want, but really, once you see that green box, that is telling you, I can just click right now, and I'm going to get that endpoint. So I usually don't like to go over here, because once I get over here, I can't tell really, since these lines are so close together when I'm zoomed out here. Once I move my mouse here, I'm not sure which endpoint I'm getting anymore. So I like to click pretty far away. So if I click here, see how it starts the line over at that point? It's the quickest and most accurate way to get geometry drawn relative to other geometry that you've done. So again, start the line command. It's asking me for the first point. I can hold down Shift and then right click. I get my Osnap menu, and I'm going to choose Endpoint. And I'll go from this point this time. Click, and now it's asking me for a second point. For the second point, I can also use Osnap. So if I Shift, right click, Endpoint again, I can get another endpoint. And then I know for certain that this line is going from that point to that point very precisely. Another common one for architectural drafting is Midpoint. So if I Shift right click, I can pick Midpoint, and that will go directly from the middle of this line, and it's shown with a green triangle instead. You draw it like that. Start the line command again. Shift right click, midpoint. There. I could draw across. Okay. Intersection, also very useful. If I wanted to draw, endpoint only goes to the end of the line. And if I try and get to this point right here, this is still one line that goes all the way across. So if I try and do the endpoint, shift right click, endpoint, I can't get that because it's not an endpoint. It's actually an intersection. So if I shift right click intersection instead, AutoCAD's going to complain because it doesn't understand what endpoint and then intersection means. And then it asks me again. Specify first point, right click, intersection, and now I can get exactly that intersection, or that intersection, or that intersection. Some of these can be endpoints, like that you could use intersection or endpoint to get to. This you can only use intersection. If it says ... right there, it's not going to find anything. It's going to allow you to pick two objects to intersect. A lot of times when you use intersection, you just want to go directly to the point you want to get, and it'll snap right there, and that ... will disappear. So I can get precisely in that intersection. Line again, shift right click, intersection, and I can grab this one, which is also another intersection that I didn't have before. It's not an endpoint. Maybe intersection here to intersection here, something like that. That's intersection. And the last one I want to show you is perpendicular. So usually perpendicular, it's not the first point, it's usually the second point of a line. So if I start out here in space somewhere, so I did line, specify first point out there, and then maybe I want to go and hit this thing perpendicular, perfectly perpendicular. So I'll shift right click, perpendicular, and now I can draw perfectly perpendicular, 90 degrees to this other line. Alright, now arcs and circles. So over here, back on the Home tab, on the ribbon, there's an arc command. Actually, I'm going to show you circle first. Circle's a little easier. So I'll start with circle. And circle, you just follow the command, the instructions here in the command line. Specify center point for the circle, or there's some options here, I'm just going to ignore them. So the center point, let's say here. Specify radius, click again. Done. The circle command doesn't loop around, so it just ends. I have to either hit enter to repeat it, or I can go back up to the ribbon and click. Center, radius. You can use Osnaps for either of those points. I can say I want, shift right click, I want the center to be here at the endpoint, and I want my radius to go to this endpoint, maybe. Just like that. Very, very easy. Circles have other Osnaps that you can do. So maybe I want to draw a circle right here at this sort of what AutoCAD calls a quadrant of the circle. I could shift right click quadrant here, and if I go over a circle, I can get these, see these four quadrants. They're kind of popping up at the 90-degree locations on the circle. I could draw from there. Maybe go to the center of this circle. Shift right click, center, you can't really see that, center, Osnap, and I could go right to the center of this circle so that this radius is perfect. That's Osnaps with circles. And then arcs work very similar to circles, but there's a bunch of options here for different kinds of arcs. The start, center, end one is probably the most useful. So it asks me to specify a start point, and then pick an end, specify the center point. So maybe over here, and then the end point out here somewhere, and then it draws an arc. It's just one of the many ways to draw an arc in AutoCAD. I usually don't use the arc command. Some people love it. I'm not that big of a fan. I'd rather just draw a circle and trim it up, but that's a little more advanced. So that's how you draw some basic objects in AutoCAD. Have fun.